Hello, welcome back. Thank you for being here. Today we're going to be talking about a little bit of self-inquiry, some thoughts and ideas and inspiration that relates to how you feel about yourself and look at yourself, and then also, therefore, how you see others, how you look at others, sort of what's the vantage point for your identity and your sense of self for your relationships with other people, whether those are your close relationships or just like the chance encounter out in the world. All of these things, your sense of who you are and your way of relating to others, of course, are really important for well being. And so I'm excited to kind of share some thoughts about that and just to dive in and offer some other perspectives that you can play around with and see what is a match for you. So, I'm Sarah Moran. I'm a writer and educator focused on self care and well being, resilience practices, and ways to help people align in body, mind, and heart. And I just want to thank you for being here, taking the time and being thoughtful and intentional about how you want to show up in the world. Because if you're here listening to this and wanting this kind of content, then I know that's something about you. And every time we go within and sort of challenge ourselves to keep learning or growing or healing, it makes a difference in our entire world. Every drop makes a difference for the collective. And so I just want to really thank you for that, for your interest in this kind of stuff. And I want to start with a quote today from Charlie Chaplin. And I'm going to switch to my video mode so I can see, for those of you watching the video, to make sure you can see it. And the quote is, "In this world, there is room for everyone," from Charlie Chaplin. And I'm going to start by reading something that I wrote a long time ago. I actually think it was probably close to 10 years ago, and it just seems increasingly relevant in the world today. And so I'm going to read this to you and hope that it provides something useful to think about. And I titled this piece, "I'm a Human Being. How about you?" How many of our problems stem from the boxes that we check in our minds, the boxes we use to identify who we are and to define ourselves, which are the same boxes we use to identify who they are. I'm a, insert your political party of choice. I'm a, insert your gender. I'm a, job title or career. I'm a, insert the sexual orientation. I'm pro, put in the issue, or anti, put in the issue. I'm a, insert your family of origin or ancestry. I'm a sports fan of this kind or that kind. I'm a, insert your religious or spiritual view. I'm a, whatever school you attended, graduate. I'm a, insert your country. Or I'm a hobby, sport, activity. In the absence of real tribes and close-knit communities of older times, is this how we've come to feel safe in the world? To feel we understand ourselves or to feel that we belong? These boxes and labels make our complex, rapidly changing, often overwhelming modern world seem easier. If I know what boxes to check, then I know what to believe, how to feel, who to trust, how to act, who to like, how to vote, and what to read. I can even put stickers on my car or signs in my garage. X parking only, X parking here, to affirm which box I belong to remind me that I do belong and to burrow deeper into that sense of belonging, and to let the world know just where I stand. In a world where 101 kinds of milk and milk alternatives are lining the dairy aisle, these boxes seem to simplify. Once I've checked the box, I know what to think. I can stop thinking and move on. After all, keeping an open mind and an open heart means opening the door to even more questions, big questions, uncertainty. If I start to question my boxes or let go of them, what do I have left? Who am I? And asking that takes bravery. Letting go of your box tribe is akin to being a pioneer alone in a pathless wood. But that is where the best discoveries and the richest ways of living are. We will not find the real answers to the real questions until we step out of these boxes and labels, until we connect from the heart, until we stop identifying with labels and start seeing ourselves and others from the deepest essence of who we are, which is from the heart level, the soul level, and seeing the essence of one's being. Life can be so much more graceful and genuine, meaningful and free without these restrictive and cumbersome boxes to lug around. We are being called to let them go and start looking from the heart and living from the heart. That is where we connect with who we really are. That is where we connect with others from who they really are, heart to heart. And perhaps that call to live from the heart is the higher purpose of how interconnected and truly global the world has become. All of this change, all the movement of people from here to there, from this culture to that country, means the ideas about living and thinking and believing are mingling together all around the planet. It means we have to create new forms of community and rely on one another in new ways. It means we can develop entirely new ways of being. And in the end, these times may be here to show us that we are indeed one human family. Human being? Check. I've got your back. Okay, so that's my piece, and I want to just expand on that and explore that a little bit today. So, first of all, I mentioned at the beginning there some of the boxes we check to identify I am this political label or this religious view, gender, my job title, this nation, pro or anti, this or that. But the list really extends when we look deeply to all kinds of things. It can be the kind of clothes I wear, the brand of clothes or my water bottle, even the car that I drive, the hobbies I have, what kind of house I live in. It could be identification with the body. I am the body, or I am the appearance. My body's strong, my body's healthy and flexible, or my body's sick. I am this diagnosis, I'm that diagnosis. It can be I'm a victim or I'm a rescuer, I'm an addict, I'm a procrastinator, I'm organized, I'm messy, I'm quiet, I'm the fun guy. It could be anything. And why does it matter if we're identifying with these kind of labels and then also putting these descriptors on others? I mean, it is a natural inclination. It's kind of part of being human at this point that we want to categorize and define things. It helps us to kind of make some sort of sense of what's around us. It gives our brain a sense of safety, that if we can make some educated guesses based on past experiences, that helps us stay safe, that helps us know how to navigate, that we need to make assumptions to move forward. And it's a kind of dualistic thinking that things are good or bad. Instead of seeing all of the nuances and the complexities, the multiple angles from which we can see things. There are so many more dimensions and higher perspectives than we could ever imagine to look at one thing. And so when we are stuck in that thinking of the brain that wants to keep us safe and identify and categorize, we are very limited from moving to those higher perspectives and from moving into the heart. So why it matters when we're really identified with these labels, and this can be sneaky, by the way. It's easy to think I don't identify as my clothes or my, this or that, but like it takes some real inquiry to see sometimes how much of that might be, in fact, how I do identify. So, you can be gentle with yourself, but really explore how much of that is your sense of who you are. Because if you can explore it deeply and come to some real answers, it will benefit you greatly, and all of us. The more all of us are doing this kind of inquiry. So first of all, why it matters is because it's not accurate. These labels aren't accurate, not really. And I'll talk more about that later. They're descriptors that might be part of our experience. Um, they might be things that are important to us and meaningful to us. They might be things we like, um, a part of who we are, but at the deepest level, they're still not who we are. But we'll loop back to that part later. So, number two, when we have these kind of labels and descriptors for ourselves and others, it can keep us from growing. It can keep us in a mindset or a belief system. For example, if it's politically, then it's okay. If I'm in this camp, then I check all these boxes A, B, and C, X, Y, and Z. This is how I feel, and boom, I'm going forward on that. And I barely scratch the surface to really go within and see how do I feel, because maybe I've outgrown a certain way of thinking or a belief system that the group holds. And right now, especially, independent thought is what's needed, thinking for ourselves, not just going with our group of choice that we've always identified with, whatever that group is. Number three, these labels and descriptors separate us. If my identity is tied into a group, whether that's a team or a school, a country, a culture, a heritage, a political party, a pro this or anti that movement, if my identity is tied into it, a generation, a career path, a socioeconomic level, any of it, then automatically there are people who are not in my group because I am now part of this group. This group is so integral to my sense of self. I've created a us versus them situation, a me versus the other. So it automatically creates some separation. Number four, these labels can lead to assumptions and judgments and then close down helpful discourse. And we can make assumptions and judgments about ourselves too. We certainly do this, that are limiting us. If I think I'm this kind of person or that kind of person and that's it for the rest of my life, and that's how I identify, I don't see the potential for change in myself either. And so what this does is it closes down helpful discourse and it limits the possibility of growth, because what we're doing is reinforcing the good and bad, right and wrong kind of thinking, which is not going to get us where we want to go. And so the more that we can practice sort of checking these identifications, the more we get ourselves into a habit of thinking and feeling that goes deeper and that can really bring people together and create the kind of evolution that we need within ourselves and, within the collective as well. I think about this. There's some people in my life where I love having conversations with them because there's so many sensitive subjects today where it feels like you can't even almost say the word without it like triggering electrical shocks of various kinds and big opinions. And I love, you can tell when people aren't identified with various roles and labels and so on, because there's not such a charge to the conversation. And it's fun to have, interesting dialogue and discourse and say, what do you think about this topic? And just genuinely out of curiosity want to know. And they can say, what do you think about this topic? And I could say how I feel. And it doesn't become a battle of I'm trying to convince you. It's an interesting discourse, an interesting, constructive, positive conversation where perhaps we both expanded each other's minds and hearts and we came away learning something new. I love having those kinds of conversations where nobody's trying to prove or defend something. Nobody's attached to the belief or the viewpoint, because I'm not seeing it as who I am. I'm not seeing their view as who they are. I'm seeing it as there's some separation and space there. I remember one of my favorite social studies teachers in high school, like one of the biggest messages that he instilled in us was question everything. And when we can do this within ourselves too, we can really grow and find ourselves on stronger footing internally of that base of who we are. And we can also grow in community and as a culture. Okay, number five, these kind of labels and descriptors, they're usually surface ways of identifying. They're relating to ourselves and others on the surface. It doesn't actually capture the deeper essence. So I'll give you an example. Like if I identify as like I'm an athlete or I'm this kind of athlete or I'm a successful business person or I'm wealthy, these might be the realities of the story of our life. But if they are what we're identifying with, that's a mistaken focus. It can be used to inflate or deflate ourselves or others. So I feel good about myself because of this descriptor, then I'm setting myself up for trouble. Like that's not solid ground. And it also can invite comparison and feeling good or bad about oneself just based on how the culture values something at a particular time and place, which will change and go up and down. And kind of related to that, number six is many of these labels that we create and identify with ourselves can be lost. They can be taken from us as well. So if I identify as my sport, let's say I'm like a really competitive world class skier, and that's my identity, that's what I want people to know about me. What happens when I have a significant injury that takes my sport away from me? Like, what am I left with now? Or if I have a career and I've really identified as that career path or that job title, and my career has become obsolete or it's become outsourced or whatever else in changing times, or I'm called to a new line of work that would actually be amazing for me and my life path that'd be really good for me, and my people, but I can't see it even. I'm not open to it because my identity is so stuck in the story of myself as the current job title. Or let's say this happens a lot. If my identity is tied to my work as a successful business person or as the compassionate veterinarian, and now I've retired, I'm not only adjusting to all that comes with the shift in the new chapter, but now I've also lost this part of my identity, which makes that shift into retirement harder than it needs to be. And then number seven, the identifications can create a sense of belonging that also keeps us more connected just on a surface level. It's not as deep as we want to go. And it leads to those limiting beliefs, limiting perspectives. For example, let's say my place of belonging is my religion or my family of, related to me by blood or my book club or my sports team, and that's my place of belonging. That's my identity or where I form my identity. Well, now, if I start to question something that feels different or outside of whatever the particular place of belonging or group of belonging is, I can't be truly aligned with who I am or invite that question. I can't be authentically myself anymore within that group because I would lose my place of belonging. If I search deeply on something and I find I don't exactly align and agree, and I'm afraid to actually be authentic and myself within that context, um, then it shuts down my growth and then therefore everybody else's as well. I keep myself kind of locked into a set of beliefs because I want to feel like I align with the group. And this can also happen with an institution, whatever the institution. It can be an institution related to science or an institution related to religion. And if I'm just accepting everything of this institution as being the absolute truth as it's interpreted by whatever the kind of institution is, and I haven't gotten deep into my heart to see how does this feel to me, it's not a true connection. And when we get trapped into that need for a place of belonging and the need to align and agree with whatever that place of belonging is, it's important to remember this: we all belong. We just belong because we're here, period. That's the end of the story. We belong as part of the natural world. We don't have to carry the same perspective or certain things in order to belong. And so we want to really get down to that sense of I belong because I'm here. That's it. I don't have to be part of a group or this group or that group in order to belong. And that really brings us deeper and into a more solid sense, a more unshakable sense of who we are. And that's really what we want. And then these things that we enjoy, the things that are part of our story, the roles or the values that we have, we can hold them so much lighter. Instead of being things that define us, that we cling to, or that we want to almost like build a fortress around, they're just things that we're experiencing, that we're learning about. They're things that might evolve and change, which is what growth and healing um, entails. And one way I think of this is like as an inside out versus an outside in terms of identity and how you form your sense of who you really are. So this outside in that we're talking about, where there's just too much of a identification with the labels and descriptions, that's I'm creating an image of myself. I want to create a sense of safety by belonging to certain categories or labels. I want other people to mirror back to me that I am this thing, that I want other people to mirror back to me that I'm good. I want other people to mirror back to me that I belong, that I'm safe, that I'm playing the right role, that I'm doing the right things in life. So this is a reliance on something external to inform my sense of self and to tell me that I'm good. And that's a very wobbly grounds, where we're never going to feel solid in ourselves. So it is worth doing this inquiry. And I'll take this a step further. So this is even more of a stretch. This can be even more of like an inner, it's this self inquiry to look at. And this is about the roles that we play and how we identify as the roles we play. So these can be roles like mother, father, parent, or friend, caregiver, lover, partner, spouse, aunt, uncle, cousin, boss, leader, employee. These sorts of roles that we play. And again, so we can recognize these roles are not ultimately who we are. That doesn't mean we can't treat the role with reverence and experience it and respect it and see it as an opportunity for growth. But when we identify as the role, that's when we get into trouble and we limit ourselves and we limit our relationships. And ultimately, it's just not the best thing for us or other people. And it's the ways that this happens. Number one, if we're identifying as a role and we identify other people as a role, then what happens is we can easily place certain expectations and beliefs around how that role should be, how they should act, what they should do in order to fulfill in our mind what is sort of the job description of the role. And so it's this, we're doing it to ourselves and then we're doing it to someone else, saying you're playing this role, so you need to be doing X, Y, and Z. And again, it's like this list, versus being aligned in yourself with body, mind, and heart, and then allowing the other person in the role the autonomy and allowing them to be aligned in their own body, mind, and heart, and having actions and choices come out of that aligned space, out of a genuine space, versus you should do this because it's your role. And number two, what we do then is we can turn relationships into transactions. What are they doing for me? This expectation they will do this for me, or that I must do this for them, as like a transaction versus a more genuine, authentic connection. And then we can also, third, turn the relationship into something conditional with conditional love. If the role forms my identity, I'm reliant on it, and I'm reliant on it for my sense of self. I'm reliant on it for my sense of safety. And if I'm not aligned with the beliefs of the other person in the relationship, or they're not aligned with me, then, or there's this need for approval, I need to approve them, or vice versa, in order to feel safe or good about myself. It turns into the fourth thing, which is we can end up clinging to a group or a role, that's not actually healthy or good for us, just because it's this special label that we've given it and we identify it as who we are. And so we lose the sense of self and we become focused on holding on to the identity. I know some of that gets a little bit, a little like hard to put into more concrete terms, but I hope that gives you something to think about. That the idea is we want to treat all of our roles with respect and with care, but not identify as the role. And here's one more degree of, or give you some specific example that kind of relates. So if I see myself as this kind of person or that kind of person, even if it's something positive, perfectly healthy, when it's an attachment to it, it's limiting. So the example I'm going to give you is, let's say I identify as I am a helpful person. This is a positive thing, right? Or it could be I'm the hostess with the mostest, or I'm the quiet one, I'm the wise one, I'm the foolish one, I'm the rescuer, I'm nice. Um, if this forms our identity, let's play this out with the example of I'm the helper, I'm helpful, and this is integral to my sense of self. So if my identity is based on that, on being the helper, I might not always make the best decisions for my life path, which I believe ultimately is the best life, thing for all of us, that all of us would be aligned. Um, I might not be making the best decisions. I might help others to the point of hurting myself. I'm helping too much in certain situations so that other people will see me as helpful and reflect that back and mirror back to me that I'm helpful, reinforcing my image now that I am good, I am helpful, and I am safe. I belong. So I might help to the point of exhaustion. I might help to the point of my own detriment, which isn't ever helpful if you are sacrificing yourselves. We have to take care of ourselves and others in right balance, everything in right balance. I could get so wrapped up in helping that I'm buried in it, and I limit opportunities that could come to me that would be most aligned for my path and my heart, that would make more of an impact on the world, but I can't see it because I'm so busy playing the helper role with certain people in my life. And I could be helping to the point of enabling people, which could be preventing them or limiting them from taking changes and steps that they actually really need to make in their life. I could be curbing their growth because my sense of self is tied to helping them. And in fact, I'm limiting them, although on the surface it looks like I'm being the helper again. I'm such a good helper. But on a deeper level or a long term level, maybe I'm not. And to clarify, this is different from a natural inclination and desire where you feel in right relationship to yourself, where it feels aligned and you feel called to do something helpful. That's great and wonderful, and we appreciate that. Some people in this lifetime may be called to be more aware, looking around, taking thoughtful action, stepping up more, helping others more. But that's different too than forming an identity and basing your own value and worth on the label of being the helper. And I'll give you another sort of general example. So I'll use myself here. I've always, my whole life, been really passionate about what are the things that help people feel better on every level, body, mind, spirit, all the ways. Always been a passion, always been an interest of mine, a curiosity, something I enjoy learning about and experiencing. So let's say for me, it would be easy then, if that's a passion and interest of mine, to have being healthy as my label or my identity. I identify as a healthy person. Okay. What happens if that's my identity and it informs a part of my self worth? I'm healthy. What happens if I lose my health or my well being? What happens if I experience health crises, which I have, by the way, in my past? I have lost my health in significant ways. And what if now, if that was my identity, I'm not only dealing with the challenges of lost health or health crisis, I'm also dealing with, on top of it, the challenge then of, and who am I? I thought I was the healthy one. And look, I'm no longer that. So who am I? And so you see, then in that case, I would have layered on top this whole extra thing because I identified as a healthy person instead of identifying as something much deeper and saying that health is interesting to me and important to me. So I hope you can see how there's more space in that second one. And then when I lose my health in the past and I've had to deal with very challenging situations around that, I'm just dealing with the issue, not the second issue of my lost sense of self. And so, what I'm suggesting is that we form our sense of identity on something much, much deeper, something that cannot be taken away, something that does not change, something that does not rely on external feedback that can change, something that you can always connect with. And the more that we can identify with that for ourselves, the more we will naturally see others in the same way and drop these labels that can divide us and limit us. So I will share with you what that unshakable, true, deep identity is for me, and you can see how that lands for you, because this is meant to be a personal exploration. Um, so part of it is just simply about recognizing your and everyone else's inherent value and worth as a human being, pure and simple as that. It's about recognizing that you are part of a bigger story. And it's about understanding that scientifically and energetically and spiritually, you are totally connected, interconnected with all of creation, and your being, who you are, really and truly makes a difference in the field that is humanity, that is this planet, that is this entire cosmos. It is all interconnected, and you do play an integral role. And this is about identifying from the heart and knowing that your human heart and everyone else's human heart holds incredible capacity for presence, for love, for joy, for peace. And what this life is largely about, in my mind, is removing the blocks to that awareness, removing those limitations to your direct knowing of who you really are. And most important for me is the recognition of who you are, which is a beautiful piece of the divine, an individualized expression of God, a soul having a human experience, a soul in a body, experiencing a particular personality, experiencing particular challenges and gifts and stories. So the labels and the descriptions from the beginning and that I've mentioned throughout, these are stories and things that our soul is experiencing on its journey to remembering who we really are. And I'm going to share a poem that I wrote several years ago also, that's sort of my way of summarizing who you really are. And by the way, I use the word God. If that word doesn't jive for you, that's fine. Replace it with something that works for you. We're still talking about the same thing. You might like the word spirit or source or divine intelligence or universe. It doesn't matter. These are just words. I like to give this example. If I see an eagle and I say, there's an eagle, and someone else says, there's a bird, and someone else says the scientific name, which is something like Accipitridae, which I'm sorry if I'm botching that if you're a bird person. Uh, this is the scientific name for the eagle family, I believe. We all said a different word. We're still talking about the same thing. And maybe someone else says it's a bald eagle or it's a golden eagle. And maybe I see the eagle from underneath. I'm directly below it and I have this perception of it. And maybe somebody else sees it from a mountaintop and somebody else sees it from a helicopter and they're looking down on it. And so we have a little bit of a different view. We're still talking about the same thing. So, just to say, please don't let the word God keep you from the essence and the concept of what I'm talking about. If that word doesn't work for you right now, just pick a different word that does. And I'll share my poem if you're watching the video. I'm going to flip over to my video view so I can see. Okay, so here we are if you can see it. So the poem goes like this: You who are a child of God, made of stars, made of light, and now you are here. Here you are now, beloved. Okay, so that's my view. You're a soul in a body having a human experience. You are working and living to remember who you really are. You are a co-creator, capable of far more than you realize. And I would encourage you to just do some exploring on that and find something that really feels so true and unshakable in your heart that you can keep going back to it. No matter what's happening on the level of the story that we tell ourselves about who we are or who they are or what's happening in the world, and just do some exploring that feels like it's truly yours as far as who you really are. And that's probably an exploration we can talk more about another time. But the point now is just encouraging to look at those deepest places within the heart and to look for that higher vision and to see everyone you encounter, whether it's the mail carrier or the person checking out at the grocery store or the people you're closest with in your lives, to see them um, from that view. And I feel this is what humanity really needs right now, is to move from the head, which wants to label and categorize ourselves and others, and move into the heart and start living from the heart. And until we can see others from the heart, see each and every person as another soul, another conscious being that's inherent of value, no matter how different their view or perspective, no matter how challenging they might be, until we can see ourselves and all others as worthy of dignity and autonomy and respect, until we can see we are all brothers and sisters. We all deserve to be seen from the heart and the level of the soul, the spirit, the essence, not these stories and labels that we carry around, not the judgments and the justifications. The more we can look this way and remind ourselves to see ourselves and others from these deeper, deeper truths. And by the way, there's really interesting science about the human heart, which I will definitely be sharing about in future episodes. Really fascinating information that we can use for our health and well-being. It kind of ties into all this a little bit. Um, but for now, just saying that every day, just observing when you want to label something and limit it, ourselves or anybody else, just pause and move into your heart and see if you can see that bigger story of being a fellow human being, of being part of creation, a fellow soul, having a human experience. Just pause on that inclination to identify as the story and create some space there. Because when we go back to our heart, that puts us into our right mind. And you can practice doing this daily, but ideally multiple times a day, just checking in of what a difference does it make to interact with the world in this way, getting out of my head and into my heart, which will strengthen your identity of who you really are and allow you to be the most authentic, genuine version of yourself, and then create so much more room for possibility for you, for relationships, for the collective. So thank you so much again for listening. I know this has been a longer show. There's a lot to say here, and I appreciate your interest. And I think next time I'm just gonna share like a fun little practice that it's fun, but you'll there's a lot of really gems of insight that I think you can mine from doing it, and it's a way to really find and create more pieces of joy in your life, which is really important when you're going through challenge, when we're in a challenging time, to keep holding on to and creating those moments of joy that kind of bring our vibration up. So I hope that you'll tune in then as well. And by the way, if you liked that poem, my Child of God poem, I call it. I will link to it in the notes. I do have an Etsy shop called Peace and Joy Studio, so I do sell it in two colors, either in person or on the Peace and Joy Studio Etsy site. And if you appreciate this content, I hope you subscribe and hit the notification bell if you're watching the video on YouTube, so you'll know when there's a new episode, or you can follow it on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. If you know friends who think might appreciate the content and find it helpful for their lives, I hope you will pass it on to them as well. And best wishes to you and yours. Till next time, thanks again. Bye-bye.